Welcome back to BWO Daily, your source for news in sports entertainment and the world of professional wrestling from your boys at Busted Wide Open. My name is Nick Howell.
And I am Sir Ian Dangerous. And that's right, Nick, we got to talk today about Shayna Baszler, because if you remember who she is, because she hasn't been on TV since May 18th when she had a match with Natalya. She was actually Becky's challenger for the women's title, the Raw Women's title at WrestleMania, and we haven't really seen her since. So the reports are out there, primarily from Dave Meltzer of Wrestling Observer, that Vince has soured on Shayna, that she doesn't fit his type. He doesn't understand her offense. He doesn't get Shayna. And so as a result, he pulled her off of TV. She is actually returning to TV this week. She was there to tape an episode of Main Event. No word on who she was facing, although of people that have been on Main Event lately, Bianca Belair has been kind of one of the tops in terms of the women's division. So I'm very curious to see who Shayna is actually facing on Main Event, and if this is the beginning of a resurgence for Shayna, or if this is just a one-off to get some money back on their investment in her. There's no real concrete word on why Shayna was pushed so hard and pulled so fast. And I know that we've discussed a lot on our show, kind of the fact that Shayna might not connect with everyone, and one of the big dangers was that she might not connect with Vince. She was a very convincing heel in NXT. Her style was brutal, but she was a polarizing figure. Some people found her matches to be, quote, boring, and other people found her matches to be vicious. So, Nick, as someone who I know has come down on that side, like, why do you think that she's not been on TV? Do you think that's what Vince is seeing as well?
I think, well, for someone that had a 2-year, 2-time NXT Women's Championship reign, basically, give or take.
That's a full take.
Yeah, I mean, that's... When was the last time we saw someone have, like, imagine if Asuka got sent down. We say sent down to Main Event like it's a derogatory thing, but... It's
a lesser show. It's not on TV. It's on the network only. I mean,
right.
It is watched by fewer people.
That's kind of the point there. Is that what we're doing with your 2-year reigning, almost immediately after Asuka's 2+ year reign, undefeated streak? Is that what we're doing with Shayna Baszler? Now, my gripe with Shayna was always that it was a one-trick pony sort of performance. I always liked the intimidation. I always liked the presence. I always liked the mic work. But when it came to working in the ring, it always felt like everything she could do to get her into the Kirifuda clutch, and that was kind of it. There, you never saw any actual chain wrestling moves. You know, it was always just submission. So that was always my gripe. I watch wrestling because I don't particularly like combat sports or MMA, but all I'm getting is sort of submission, right? So that was always my gripe with Shayna, and I'm wondering if that's part of this. I know you also had some gripes with or curiosities whether she would make it on the main roster. What was your position?
I didn't have gripes. I actually am very high on Shayna Baszler. I'm one of the people that really enjoyed her in-ring work. I felt like she felt legitimate, and she felt like a threat. She felt like someone you could easily build as a monster, and was booked that way in NXT. She was a Paul Heyman project at first on the main roster. And Vince actually took her away from Paul because he didn't like her he didn't, apparently, according to these reports, didn't like her work style and had a reaction similar to yours. I'm more on the Paul Heyman side of things, where I see someone who I can build into a monster. Maybe not someone who bites people's necks, but I could see Shayna being someone that I could make terrifying. And actually, it was a situation where Becky even pitched that Shayna should beat her at WrestleMania. And frankly, hindsight being 2020, if Becky has to drop the belt anyway, as much as I like what they've done with Asuka and the way the Money in the Bank worked out and everything else, if you had Shayna beat Becky at WrestleMania, you'd have a made-in-the-shade heel. And it would have been difficult to tell because there's no crowds to really give you that immediate feedback. But the heat she would have had immediately would have been completely legitimate.
And then she goes into a program with Asuka.
Sure.
Yes.
It all wrote itself. So it's the whole thing was somewhat, or even Charlotte or whoever, but the whole thing was frustrating to me as someone who's a believer in Shayna Baszler and who does like her in-ring work and thinks that if booked well, she can absolutely get over as a monster heel. the difficult thing is hearing that Vince doesn't understand the MMA work style. And I'm sitting here going, well, you just got Matt Riddle that got called up. What are you going to do with him? You know, half of your roster in NXT is now MMA influenced. So it makes you look at Sonya Deville and go, okay, maybe now we know why he didn't get her for so long. And she was, you know, coming out to Mandy's music and everything that she gripes about that in kayfabe that is actually true. So the other thing, and this is something that actually, I can't believe I'm going to do this, but I'm going to quote Jim Cornette here. He had a reaction to this where he said that Shayna didn't tick all of Vince's boxes because he, Bruce Pritchard, and by extension, Kevin Dunn, I'm throwing that name in there, not all of them see busty blonde women as being the only way to express women on TV. People like Becky who get over on their own, they'll run with it if their hand is forced. And let's be clear, Becky forced their hand with her push. Mm-hmm. But if left to their own devices, they're going to go with blonde bombshells. We were always joking about Lacey Evans. Well, once Vince sees Lacey Evans, she's made in the shade. And Cornette's a guy who's worked with all of these guys and knows their predilections. So when someone says to Cornette, oh, she didn't tick his boxes, and Cornette's immediate reaction is to say, oh, yeah, well, she wasn't a blonde like Lacey Evans. My immediate thought is, oh, well, Cornette would know that that's their predilection. Yeah. So that also could be a major thing. Like, well, if she looked like Charlotte and worked that style, would she get more of a chance? That's really the question we have to ask here as well. So the whole thing is somewhat frustrating. Obviously not the first time we've seen someone get a huge push, halted quickly, and then fall off entirely off of TV in the history of WWE. It's actually, you know, we recently had a question on our show about the next big things that suddenly disappeared. So I worry for Shayna, and I frankly think that they're sitting on a lot of talent there that they could utilize, and it's a sad thing they're not utilizing it properly.
Do you think that there's an element of it that's kind of a diet Ronda Rousey or Ronda Rousey light that
No.
We just had a Ronda Rousey run for a year? Do we need another one right now?
Ronda was a different animal entirely. I've always said Shayna and Ronda are very much yin and yang. They're two completely different styles. Ronda she got sports entertainment a lot more clearly in terms of being big and flashy and exciting, and not the ground and pound, you know, very, very much wear them down style of Shayna Baszler. That's just a vicious, manipulating joints and all of that, you know. And I think maybe if they want Shayna to be more quote unquote entertaining, maybe she could look at like British catch wrestling and the way that they like Pete Dunne or someone like that, who can work a kind of more grinding style and keep it entertaining. So I don't know. I'm just trying to think of ways out of this.
Yeah.
But that's not all we have to talk about today, Nick. We also have to mention that SummerSlam has been canceled.
What?
In Brooklyn. The Brooklyn show has been canceled. They're still going to have SummerSlam, but they haven't said where yet. They've just officially canceled the event in Brooklyn. That whole weekend was the second biggest weekend for them of the year after WrestleMania. It was going to be TakeOver on August 22nd, SummerSlam on August 23rd, Raw on the 24th. That's all gone bye-bye for obvious reasons. Now, the interesting thing about this is the Boston mayor actually canceled all the events in early May. He said there's no events happening in Boston for the foreseeable future. He said that back in May, and it's now July 7th, and WWE's just now saying, oh, yeah, hey, we're not going to have that event in Brooklyn. So they've actually said for a while that there's not going to be any events, Boston, New York, anywhere, and WWE's just now getting around to canceling this. So it seems a little bit late, but I know that until the last week or so, when everything started to tick back up, that Vince was hopeful. He wanted to be the first company to have crowds back. Yeah. And that he wanted by mid-April to have crowds back. So that would explain why they waited so long to officially cancel this. But we have not actually had this officially moved to the Performance Center either. The speculation is, and the expectation is, they're going to have it at the Performance Center, because where else are they going to go? Maybe Fight Island? I don't know. But yeah, so that's all gone bye-bye, at least until the end of August is what that's telling us. No crowds for WWE.
You can't scare me like that. I had to check my pulse, because I don't know that there's ever been one of the big four pay-per-views that have been canceled like that. Even after 9/11, we pushed forward into, the show must go on.
The show must go on.
All
the show
of that
must
stuff.
go on.
Whew,
Vince,
so you
Vince
said
is the show
SummerSlam
must go on.
canceled.
No.
Guys,
In
SummerSlam
Brooklyn.
is not canceled.
in Brooklyn. If
Yes.
you were going to go see it in Brooklyn, you're not going to go see it in Brooklyn anymore. You're going to have to watch it on the network from the PC.
Sorry, Barclays Center. You're not going to get your big four this year.
My God, it's this is all going to be a mess this year. But not so much for Brian Pillman. He's riding high. Brian Pillman Jr., that is. He is debuting tomorrow night on AEW Dark, but he is still signed to MLW. MLW released a statement saying if he elects to perform elsewhere under the terms of his deal, he certainly has our full blessing to do so. He knows our schedule. So apparently Pillman Jr. playing both sides, getting a little bit of exposure on AEW, which certainly gets a lot more exposure than MLW. So more props to him getting his name out there.
Can I give a little hat tip and a golf clap to MLW for being good sports and classy about that? Fantastic.
On this, they're the MLW has its other issues, which we don't have time to get into today. But
I want to applaud good behavior when it happens. Thank you for not being dicks. When one of your contractors wants to also work and moonlight, I guess you could say, somewhere else to further their own career.
A rising tide raises all ships. If you get more exposure for your boy, he comes back to you. He's a bigger star. That's the right kind of that's a good business mentality. Indeed. Right there. And certainly I know Pillman Jr. is very excited to debut on TV opposite Sean Spears, I believe. Whew. So that should be a fun, good match. So finally, Nick, to wrap up, we got to say happy birthday to the great Sasuke. He turned 50 today. And also Ricky the Dragon Steamboat's son, Richie, who was Seth Rollins' former tag team partner in FCW. He was also an FCW heavyweight champion and unfortunately had to retire from wrestling due to a tragic back injury, which is tragic. He looked like he was going to be a big deal, but Richie turned 32 today. So happy birthday to Richie, Richie Blood, Richie the Dragon Steamboat. And those are the birthdays, and that is the news, Nick.
Well, thank you very much, Sir Ian Dangerous. Happy birthday to the great Sasuke and Richie. Are we calling him Richie? It's Richie Blood.
Richie Blood.
It's not Richie Steamboat. Richie
Steamboat. He went by Richie Steamboat, so we can call him that.
Sure. Happy birthday. And thank you guys for tuning in for yet another episode of BWO Daily. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel and got your notifications set to all so that you get notified every day when we put up a brand new episode bringing you the hot news of the day from your boys right here at Busted Wide Open. We will be back later tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern with our main show recapping what's gone on Monday Night Raw last night, as well as any updates on the New Japan Cup that's currently in progress.
All the updates. We'll bring you all the way up to the finals.
Yes,
all the way up to the finals.
All kinds of good stuff. We hope everybody had a great July 4th holiday weekend last weekend. I'm excited to be back if you guys
hope you still all have your fingers.
Yes.
Have all your fingers still on your hands.
Make sure you get into our Discord community for all the live chats throughout the week. That and our social media links can all be found down in the description below. But my name is Nick Howell. You can find me on Twitter at DataCenterDude.
And I am Sir Ian Dangerous. You can find me on Twitter at Sir Ian Dangerous.
And we will see you guys next time.